Welcome to Frontrunners. We all know the pressures over the last year have far exceeded what we would normally encounter in our regular working life. Our home-work-life balance has blurred. Many of us have taken on more responsibilities, and that can lead to more stress. Many of us are experiencing a lot more stress through these lockdowns and the various stages of it than we could ever have imagined. And that stress can really lead to work-related illnesses and sometimes burnout. As a damage prevention organisation, we're interested in sharing information and helping people understand stress and burnout and preventing it. So we've invited therapist Nicolette Norval to share with us some of her insights about the effects of stress, how to prevent it, what to look for, how to self-diagnose, when to reach out for help, that type of thing. The effects on us personally and also on the organisations we work for. So Nick has wrapped everything up into 3 modules. I hope you enjoy what she's got to share and can take home some insights that will be helpful for you.
Imagine having no stress in your life. How would that look like? And is that possible? Now the answer is simply no. Animals have stress. We have stress. Stress is in fact a really important part for survival. Now stress helps us to react when we feel threatened. Now like animals, we use a fight or flight instinct to protect ourselves. However, unlike animals, we can learn to control and manage that stress, so it does not become destructive in our life. So this presentation applies to anyone experiencing stress in the workplace, especially those who encounter it every day. Examples being the trade sector, drain layers, electricians, fencing contractors, the civil construction and building industry, and of course, locators. So who am I? I'm a registered and accredited mental health clinician, and I predominantly work with adults who experience stress, anxiety, depression, and trauma sometime in their personal life and or work. I'm an employee assistance program therapist, in other words, EAP, a ACC sensitive claims therapist, a professional and clinical supervisor, a body language expert, and a life coach. Now, before I embarked on this career with psychology counseling and professional supervision, I worked for an international IT organization in South Africa and then in New Zealand as a sales and marketing professional for almost 10 years. And throughout this journey, I realized how important stress management was for me on a physical and a mental aspect. So I was so overworked and my health started taking a toll. I used to travel around the globe to experience this pressures from everywhere just to reach my targets, and then learned that stress is really part of any job. It will never ever go away. It's part of life. So I had to accept it. I had to learn and understand it. And then I realized I needed to do more research and understand it. So today, looking back, after completing all of my studies here in New Zealand, I can say that I think I found the recipe to managing stress more effectively. So this presentation is the first of 3 modules. Now, module 2 and 3 are built on this one. And this module is approximately 10 minutes in length. So if you like the topic, you'll want to check out the other 2, but in your leisure. Now, in this module, I provide you with insights into the impact of stress on you and the organization. I'll also explain as 3 levels the cycle of stress and what experience does everyone go through when we have that. And at the end, I'll provide you with some direction of how to manage your stress more effectively. What I found really interesting was a Whitehall study. That's an area, by the way. Now, Professor Marmont's done the study on 10,000 business professionals in the UK to typically find out what's the reasons for workplace pressure and why is it increased in some areas. Firstly, the demands of the job. So enormous demands causes more stress. Secondly, the amount of control or influence you have over your work. Now, the less control you have, the more stress you have. Now, having responsibility can therefore be in your favor. And thirdly, the amount of support that you receive from your managers, your colleagues, your peers, HR. And does the company provide you with some tools when you do go through some stresses? And lastly, effort versus reward. Is the effort you're putting into your job rewarded? So I've done a bit of research into what impact this has on the organization. Now, from an organizational point of view, what happens if a staff member gets more stressed? So there's an increased level of sickness, an increased level of complaints from clients or your staff or people around you. Then you get an increased number of errors and misjudgments and accidents, and then decreased commitment to your job. A substantial increase in claims such as WorkSafe and ACC because there's a lot of injuries. And lastly, a reduced performance because you just feel so down all the time. Now let's have a look at the impact of stress on us, our body and our mind. Now there are 4 areas. So what do you think is the impact of stress on our emotional level? Now stress reduces motivation and it leads to tiredness and anxiety. And on a cognitive level, that's where errors are increased, accidents are more probable, and our creativity is dropped. And on a behavioral level, maybe we'll not get on with our staff members or our peers or colleagues, or we'll have some arguments at home perhaps. There's also an increase of indecisiveness, irritability, sickness, excessive eating, alcohol consumption, and or smoking. And lastly, our physiological level. There's an increased possibility of a heart attack, headaches, migraines, pains, dizziness, digestive disorders, and a reduced immunity to diseases. So to best explain what stress really looks like, here is a graph called the gas model. Now, Professor Seeley's created this model, and I found it really helpful. Now, there are 3 stages to stress. So when stress hits and you get a sudden shock or experience that fear, obviously your stress levels goes up. And you reach a peak where your adrenocorticotropic hormone is surging through your brain, giving these messages of fight or flight or adapt. Now, with these 3 stages, the first one is the pre-alarm stage. Now, during this stage, you are unprepared for the job. Imagine you're a new staff member. Then you'll go through the alarm stage. Now, despite engaging in training, there are, of course, differences that's noticed in your performance, and that might create a bit of, am I doing the job properly? However, there are now further environmental demands on the employee. Then there's resistance stage. Now, to overcome this challenge of adjusting to a new job or an environment, we need our physical and psychological resources to meet the demands. And another thing that I could just put some emphasis on here is, imagine COVID-19. This is also a stressor, and we also go through the same cycle. Now, the last cycle is called exhaustion. Owing to this increased physical and psychological demands on us, the person or you adjust. So you can either lose your interest in the job, or you can just say, I'll just get over it. Now that, if it's an ongoing process, that can lead to burnout and total exhaustion. But hey, adaptation is therefore a thought pattern. And I've learned this very early in my career now. A pattern you may want to adopt is what I call the AAA pattern. Firstly, you have to either alter your response, A, for avoid the stressor again, or A, for accept the situation or the environment you're in and trust that it will become okay. So hey, at the end of the day, there are 3 things to remember in dealing with stress. Firstly, gain an understanding. Understand it. Learn about it. Secondly, learn to adapt to it. And thirdly, be proactive. Have a management plan and be solution focused in your thinking. Instead of saying, I hate this job, saying, my job is challenging. However, I'm going to do this or do that to try to focus on something. So usually the problem is not the stress itself, but how we manage and adapt to that stress. So a successful stress management strategy is creating that feeling of happiness and strength and security and effectively more resistance. And then you get a positive feedback loop. And if you manage it badly, it leads to wear and tear, weakness, increased vulnerability, and therefore more stress. So, hey, it's just a vicious cycle. So if you click on depression.org.nz and you go to the free anxiety test, you will find a little assessment there. You can self-assess, be honest and truthful when you answer those, and get your own score. No one else but you see it. And it will put you in a category, because I believe in the journey that I've done and also in my capacity as a clinician and seeing this in employees on a daily basis, there are typically these 4 stages or 4 levels of stress. And we need to aspire to get to one specific level. And if you know what level you're in on a constant basis, it's easy to adapt to that level. So in conclusion, this module covers the reasons for stress. Firstly, it describes the impacts of stress you may find in an organization and also in a staff member. And secondly, it explained the stress cycle we go through on a daily basis and how we typically respond to it using the general adaptation model called the GAS model. And thirdly, it highlighted some workable responses to a stressor and how to manage it. Lastly, it provided you with a self-assessment test you may find very interesting so that you can see on which level you are. Because in level 2 or module 2, if you're interested to hear more about that managing of stress levels, module 2 provides those insights into the differences between a stress, a stressor, and work burnout or fatigue. It describes the 4 levels of stress, and one of these stress levels is effectively the stress level you must aim to adapt to so that you may become successful in managing stress in your life and at work. And once you understand these levels, you will have a better understanding on how to achieve your working goals.